This is episode 74. I am so happy that you're here and thank you for joining my show, your coach, Helen Yuskovic. I am on a worldwide mission to help people get confident in putting themselves first because I used to put myself second my whole life. And because of that, I experienced every unhealthy relationship possible. An unhealthy relationship with myself, my health, my wealth, my intimate relationships, my family, my friends, and my career. I'm now living in an abundance that I used to just dream about. So I want to pave the way for you too. It's time, guys. It's time that you live in the life of your dreams as well. So let's take a step towards that right now. P.S. Subscribe to my podcast on your app now so that you always tune in to my new episodes. I would love to welcome to the show the beautiful Kate. I met Kate from Instagram, I think. Was it Instagram, Kate?
My assistant gave me your name, and then I started to research you, and I just loved everything that you were up to. And so I wanted to interview you because I felt like we were sort of like-minded creatures. And when we had our conversation the first time, that was definitely my takeaway.
So this is a beautiful example of a reach out leading into a friendship. And I invited her onto the show because she is a wealth of wisdom. But before we get into today's episode, Kate, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself, your history, your work, and your place in the world.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Yes, I'm Kate Crow, and I teach a method that I have created called Shift It. And I'm a transformational coach. I'm I always describe it as a little bit spiritual, a lot of mindset, and self-mastery. So that's sort of the bent of the flavor of my coaching. I've been a coach for almost 20 years now. I came into it through a big transition. I was getting divorced and met my first coach on a retreat. I think I had left my marriage at the end of July, and I met her in October. And within the first session, right after the first session, I realized, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So wow. Studied with this group for, I don't know, well, this is 2001 and I left in 2012, started Shift It in 2012. So, so I help people, mostly people in some form of transition, or that they're in an area that they want to expand their life. And that can be in body, career, sort of money, or love. I sort of deal holistically with the whole person. And I just, I love what I do. I'm a mother of 3 adult children, and I've had a lot of, I always say I have a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks in a funny way, because I've had 2 partners die of cancer, and one of my children has a chronic mental illness. And there's not much that I encounter in the world that I don't have some sort of understanding about. So I'm out to sort of end victim consciousness by helping people to shift their perspective again and again.
Wow, you are so inspirational. You mentioned a few things there. You've lost 2 partners, not just one.
I know. I'll figure it out.
When you look back at that from the space that you are now, what would you say are your biggest lessons at the moment from that experience?
Well, they were different. Like the first one, I think the first one, I always think that in relationships, we get to see ourselves. And I think in the first one, the man was a little bit younger than me, and we had been together for maybe 3 or 4 years, and he had kidney cancer. In that relationship, I really learned the power of giving, but also learning to take care of myself, if that makes sense. Like, and not, to give in balance.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
The second one was a relatively short relationship. It was only a year, but he was sort of a deeply, deeply spiritual person. He had been sober for 37 years and had a huge following in our community. And I learned from him sort of receiving, and also just real honesty, because he really pushed, that in himself. And, then, it was something that I experienced as well. I think in total, one of the things I am committed to is helping people to see the possibility in their lives when they don't think they have any. So, I think I really, really believe I always butcher this poor man's name, but the Pierre Desjardins quote of, "We are spiritual beings having a human experience." And I really believe that as humans, we are here to try to evolve to the highest version of ourselves. And it is through our encounter with our human experiences that we actually go through those lessons and learnings, and ideally not feeling, moving out of victimness, so that we can see what it is that we're supposed to learn. So your question was really a great one.
Yeah, you sound like you are probably the most resilient woman in the world. You also mentioned that you have a child living with a mental health issue. And I coach a lot of teenagers, preteens on mental health. And I would love for you just to share a brief history of what it's like as a mother to go through this.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty intense experience for all of our family. My son's schizophrenia started to bloom when he was 20. And then at 22, he committed a crime and took the plea not guilty by mental defect. He was away for 10 years. And I have to say that he's a marvel to me, because what he has gone through, what he's experienced, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy in terms of, but his the integrity with which he took on that journey was stunning. And really, getting on the right medication, sobriety, it flipped his life around. And now he's been free for a year. He's in love. He's an established painter, sells a lot of paintings that are incredibly beautiful. And he's a joy to be around, because he's has so much gratitude for life. And so it was his experience and mine. What I really got was that love is healing. And oftentimes the other person has to do the work. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't fix any of this. He got on a train and destination unknown. But, it was, again, I would say the big lesson out of that was that self-awareness is the true power. Because as he took on his self-awareness and his ownership of who he is and his essence, that's what gave him the freedom to have his life back. So it was an intense experience for us all, but it was ultimately a very beautiful one.
You are an example of how a family should move through adversity. So congratulations on all of that. Let's deep dive into our episode. Thank you for sharing. And let's talk about triggers, And let's talk about, first off, what a trigger is and why do people have triggers, Kate?
Well, going back to what I think triggers are a warning bell or a doorbell that, or, it's a wake up call to an experience that needs healing. So usually we're triggered because there's something in us that needs to be owned and healed. It can be a trauma. It can be, a spiritual lesson. It can be a soul's wounding. So there's a sutra in the Aquarian age that comes out of Kundalini, but it's that it says the other person is you. So I love that, because what it tells me is if that something in the other person is being reflected back at me.
Yeah.
So a trigger is really a wake-up call for our and a healing, a potential healing for us. It's telling us, sometimes it's like a doorbell ringing incessantly. It can be annoying and grating, but it's, in my opinion, it's just showing us something that needs to be healed and needs to be owned.
And triggers can give you some sort of an emotional charge.
100%. They generally will, and it can just be that reflection of like, wow, this is upsetting to me. This is painful to me. And so it's sort of the universe saying, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention.
Yeah, two of my very good friends were holding a relationship weekend workshop, and when they received feedback from the workshop, one of the pieces of feedback was your relationship must be fake. There's no way that you two could be that happy. And I was like, now that is a trigger in action. And it was just so interesting that, everyone might be fighting some sort of a battle. But to become aware of triggers, I think, is one of the best things that you can do for yourself, because you could potentially hurt yourself or hurt other people, only because, like you said, there's that doorbell that's ringing and you're not answering the door. And it's like that salesman that just doesn't leave the door. I will haunt you until you answer the door. Kate, it's time for your first curveball. Are you ready to play?
Yeah.
What is something that most people don't know about you?
One, that I'm both an introvert and an extrovert. Yeah, I need a lot of downtime for myself, but on the other hand, I love to be around people also. So I think that would be one.
Beautiful. Let's continue. What is the best way that people can help themselves, Kate, in a moment where they are triggered? So they've caught the doorbell. What is something that people can do?
I think the first thing to do is to name it and claim it and change it. That's a 12-step slogan, but I love it, because it's basically, when we can say, oh, this is my fear of abandonment. This is my, whatever. There's so many different things that trigger us, but that's a big one for a lot of people. My fear of not being good enough. This is, or the people that you were talking about, that those suspects of like, there's no way, like, what is it? That might have been jealousy, right? There might have been something in there that they are not believing. But so in my opinion, once we are able to name it, then we can claim it. Then we have that space to change it. If you don't name it, it's running you. You're not running it. So I think the first thing is to be able to say, oh yes, my fear of abandonment has been triggered here, and I'm feeling rejected, and all the darkness that comes with that feeling. And then to ask yourself, is that really true?
Yeah.
And it may be true, but it may be that I'm always amazed, Helen, to find that there is almost always a gift, just like I said, in those different experiences that I've had that would be labeled as dark and powerlessness. What I've trained myself to do is to try to look for, what Carl Jung used to say, the gold in the dark. Where is that golden nugget of wisdom that I can embrace and take in? So that would be the first thing, is to name it, claim it, and then in that space, give yourself a chance to make a different choice. Now, that takes self-awareness. And I said that earlier, that in my opinion is the true power. So I think, how do we get that? We want to really look at, like, what, in naming it, like, what is it? What is the cost to this behavior? How is it impacting you in a negative way? And this is a bizarre thing to say, but what's also the benefit to you? So, in a space of, I'm going to use this to follow on this example of abandonment, because it's so big for so many humans, but it's like, okay, what's the payoff of being able to stay in that space of feeling abandonment? Well, you might not feel like you don't have to have the bravery to speak up. You might not have the bravery or the courage to say, hey, this is what I need. So the payoff is you stay on the sidelines of your life. You stay in that place, that the false sense of safety.
Wow. Yeah, that's some great tips. Name it, claim it, and change it. Such a simple hack, and self-awareness, it sounds like it definitely is key to triggers. So if anyone listening, if you find that you get triggered quite a lot, I hope that this will serve you well. I used to get triggered a lot all the time, to the point where now, so much self-awareness now, Kate, that living in a daily place of gratitude, I think, is what has been the most healing for me. And losing all judgments towards others and just being way more open-minded, accepting, surrendering to the process, and obviously forgiving myself and others. That was a really huge turning point for me when it came to releasing all of these triggers. And I used to get jealous, and I used to get this, and I used to get that. And yeah, now that we have this discussion, it's just bringing back all these memories that I forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
Kate, it's time for your second curveball. Are you ready to play?
Yeah.
Kate, what is your favorite form of self-care?
I would say it's a toss-up, but I love taking baths, and I also love walking in nature.
Me too. That's so amazing. I will have more than one bath a week, that's for sure. All right, let's keep going. Kate, what is the best way to help yourself if you get triggered too often, like it becomes sort of like a daily thing and you're in this negative sort of mindset each day? And how do we help ourselves if that is how we're living every single day?
Well, I think a couple things. It's the things that we've just already said. It's really getting clear. Is this way of thinking advancing you towards your goals, or is it holding you back? Is it empowering you, or is it disempowering you? And I think that's a really important question to ask when we're feeling triggered. Like, the fact is, the first step is to be able to say, okay, I am being triggered. And then I think curiosity is a golden quality, because if we get curious instead of being judging of it, we can start to untangle it. We loosen its grip. why am I feeling this way? You mentioned jealousy is such an toxic experience. And, but when you start to look at jealousy as from the vantage point of, ooh, there's something in there that I want. There's something, that would, that would make me happy. Okay, great. Then the next question is, all right, how can you go for that? How could you get some of that as opposed to just desiring it? Now, the growth for you, the person who feels that is involved in like being able to go after that and to get it. But it's I think so naming it, getting curious, and being able to start to see it and asking that question is what I'm feeling if I'm feeling this on such an daily level, is this empowering me or disempowering me? I was talking to a client last night, and she's in her 60s, and she was feeling a little hopeless around the fact that she feels like she's been sort of in the same pattern over and over and over again. And she's been a student of personal development for a long, long time. And she's like, but the truth is she needs to create a personal revolution and treat it a little bit like it's an addiction. Like, because negative thinking and obsession and rumination is like that. And we can get on that train and it's taking us south. It's not empowering us. And it's only when we do that cost analysis and start to really see that it's taking us away from how we truly want to be. And for this woman, I was like, yeah, you know what? You have to have some really hardcore rules. If you're just getting sober, you don't go to bars. Like, you just don't. And it takes a while to be able to do that. So in this case, she has a real problem with letting go. And, many people do. But hers has gotten to a place where she's got way, way, way too much stuff. And, so my suggestion was to take contrary action and to create a business of letting go, meaning let go of things, make money doing that, sell things, rechannel the energy. So we talked about that with jealousy. You're rechanneling that energy. Same thing with, like when you're doing the same thing again and again and again, you have to interrupt it. And it's usually it's, doing the opposite of what you're inclined to do.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Do the opposite of what you're inclined to do. It's just like, in friendships, for example, if you feel that your friend is untrustworthy, maybe you should implement more trust somehow, because there's an energy shift. Now, you mentioned so many beautiful things just then, and I hope that everybody is absolutely loving this episode. I know that I am. But what I really took away was rechanneling that energy, because it is just energy. And for those of you that might be suffering on a regular basis, on the other side of that suffering is joy and peace, and going through some sort of a healing process, or having someone facilitate it for you, like a coach, might just be the best thing that you have ever done for your life.
Yeah, and I think that you have to make a decision. Like in the method that I teach, the first premise is that it's like happiness is a choice. It's a decision that we make to change it because we don't want to feel what we feel. Like, and I think this is a great time to throw in, feelings are not facts. The feelings are real, but they're not facts.
Yeah.
So in the case in point of, of jealousy, yeah, we can feel really like, oh, I want that. I want what you have. But it's not necessarily a factual thing. And I think there's Byron Katie does such great work in that area, but she's really pushing, question it, so that you can start to see, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? But I think to underscore there, it's oftentimes what we're feeling. It's real. Sadness is sadness. Depression is depression. Those are things that are real, but they're not necessarily facts. They're not the whole of your life. And that's also becomes, what we're really talking about is strengthening a muscle.
Yeah.
Because life is a practice over and over again. To get to the highest version of ourselves, we do have to practice, self-awareness and questioning of ourselves. And if we make a mistake, apologize quickly and then move on.
Yeah.
But how many times have we made a mistake and then we beat ourselves up about it? And it's like, no, go and apologize, do it in a heartfelt way, and release yourself, and hopefully release the other person if you've hurt them, in a good way. But I think, one thing I've learned in my life is that, you got to get back on the horse, and you have to keep, that goal of what's the highest version of myself? What would she do? What would he do? What would they do? Those are, when we ask that question, then some of that allows us to interrupt the grip of our feelings. And the fact is, a trigger is a grip of a feeling. It is, you have something has hurt you in this lifetime or a past lifetime, but it doesn't matter. It still hurts. But the way out is through it. And it is by saying, oh, this hurts. So now I've got to let it go a little bit. Or just name it, and so I can release it.
Definitely. Kate, it's time for your third curveball. Are you ready to play?
Okay.
I believe in karma. And the question to you is, when was your last random act of kindness?
I think it was today. I'm in the process of moving, and I have these two men who have, they're pretty old, but they are very, very strong, and they came and helped me. And they were humble, and I wanted to really acknowledge them, because without them I would be really stuck. So I gave them some money, and the one man was super happy. So
beautiful. How good are random acts of kindness?
Yeah, they're so good.
It's just a great way to fill yourself up. And I find that when I'm feeling down, if I help someone for something, it really helps fill me back up.
100%. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, do you have any tips or any advice or any guidance or wisdom that you would like to share on this topic of triggering today?
Well, first of all, get super honest with yourself. If you're in a state, I have found that, self-inquiry is amazingly, it's the ladder out. And, part of it is understanding that I don't want to feel this way. And other people, I often say, we are everything. We're good, we're bad, we're mean, we're kind, we're selfish, we're generous, we're everything. And we always, always get a choice in how we want to be. When we're triggered, we're on that slippery slope, and we're sliding down, and it's like, but we even have, as we've talked about today, those opportunities to make a change comes when we acknowledge the pain and we say, hey, I don't want to feel this way anymore. You and I had talked before about that fabulous quote by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I think it's an old but good Bible in terms of, but he has one of the things that he says is seek to understand, then to be understood. So especially when you're triggered, you're almost always going to be triggered by a human, oftentimes, get curious and remember that, that find out, what is going on for the other person. You said service, and I agree with you. Like, the more we can try to understand what another person is going through, the more we can then have more compassion for ourselves. And the fact is, when we're triggered by another human, the question to ask yourself is, have I ever been this way? Could I ever be this way? What am I making this mean? When I'm coaching somebody, I will use that. What are you making it mean? What are you making it mean about you? What are you making it mean about life? Because that's the place where you can, with curiosity, with sort of a shift in your perspective, you can come up with a different conclusion. And many times, I remember one of my coaches, when, a man I had been living with, I had lent him money, and then he took off and didn't pay me back. And I was like, wow, who does that? And she said, what is the good in that? Like, where is that, and so when I was able to sort of see, well, what was good about it was, like, I got to see who he truly was, even though it hurt a lot. And it brought me to a different understanding of my own levels of self-care, my own levels of needing to put in some boundaries. So, there's always something, the beautiful thing about, personal development and self-inquiry is that we're always in that place of learning place of learning, period. But then also how that can contribute to the higher versions of ourselves. So, and I think that is, in my book, the true place where we want to be is, like, at least I want to be able to look back and say, did I make a difference? Was I in my highest version? And, and when we're not, apologize and reboot and start again.
Yes. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom today. Kate, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
To all of our listeners, you are, your happiness and fulfillment is your God-given right. And, if you are feeling triggered, free yourself with the help of a coach, if that works for you, or, any number of ways. But, step on the train of freeing yourself, because your happiness is worth it.
Beautiful. Yes, you all deserve to feel free. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you once again, Kate, for your time today.
Absolutely, Helen. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Thank you times infinity for spending time with me. It really means a lot. Putting yourself first will really help escalate your goals, your dreams, and I love being on the journey with you. So make sure you come and tell me on my Instagram at Whole Health, which is HOL_health, and comment below this podcast photo to share your thoughts on my show today. And if you enjoyed it, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify so that I can keep bringing amazing value to you. I'm sending you truckloads of love, power, and joy. Bye for now.